After almost 1 year, are you satisfied with your national government's response to the COVID-19? If not, what could have been done in your opinion? Lots of people are unhappy with how things were handled in South Africa. Cigarette and alcohol ban. Beach closures. Lockdown here is a joke. A huge part of the population lives in informal settlements where you can't social distance. Plus it's hard to do online teaching when an internet connection and computer is a luxury. The cigarette ban was dumb as F. They don't know what it's like to live with a smoker expected to go cold turkey. They were irritable as F. And also having a decent internet connection is a luxury. It depends on your area and service provider really. An alcohol ban is even dumber. Alcoholics can die if suddenly forced to go cold turkey, to say nothing about irritability. You are correct, I live in the States and my governor made our liquor stores essential businesses pretty early on. People made fun of him for it, but it was for this reason. Edit, I live in Virginia. Our governor banned the sale of alcohol. For about 2.5 hours. I too lived through Colorado's prohibition. Why is the reason behind cigarette and alcohol ban? I don't smoke anymore, but I bet I would have during lockdown. Also, I never drank so much at home than during lockdown. One of the reasons was to cut down on ER admissions. Guess alcohol is responsible for lots of hospitalizations. Check here. It's a effing disaster. The rules change on the whim with no predictability, no pattern, and most of all, no common sense. The current status is of some kind of semi-lockdown, with set of rules no one understands anymore. The epidemic is running wild, the economy is in ruins, government lost all its credibility and the vaccination is badly delayed. We already went through 2 ministers of health since last year and the third is still in the office just because PM can't find anyone suicidal enough to replace him. Edit, as for what could have been done, the summer of 2020 could have been spent actually preparing for the fall and winter, plans could have been made, and then those plans should be followed. Plans could have been made for the vaccination, because it looks as if the vaccine came out of the blue and everyone involved was taken by surprise. Just an example, first wave of vaccines was meant for people 80 years or older. They were supposed to schedule their date of vaccination online. Okay, so their families did it for them, no problem. The system for reservations was supposed to only accept 80+ old people. In the first 15 minutes of the reservation system going online, a university student, so about 20 years, managed to get a reservation. He didn't really want to get vaccinated, he went public to point out the issue. Yeah, it's really bad here. Best in COVID. Also check government refused help offered by German hospitals close to the borders. J to skutku na havno. Lockdown greater than open everything thing up greater than illegal large gatherings in weddings greater than lockdown greater than open everything up greater than lockdown. Rinse and repeat. Israel. Couldn't be anywhere else, we're like at the fourth one I think. Couldn't be anywhere else greetings from the UK, mate. 3 months lockdown. Slowly reopen. Eat out to help out. Stupid tier system. Surprise lockdown just before Christmas. Harsher tier system, plus, cancelled holidays for some. Yet another surprise lockdown with no end in sight. Feels good. Narrator, it did not feel good. The London Heraldist have been pulling that crap too. Chief Rabbi in the UK went ballistic condemning them. You forgot this, hold elections again. How you going to end the lockdown with more infections per day than when it started Israel? What the F? We going to need another lockdown for this lockdown. I'm from a small country called Seychelles and yes I'm pleased with how we handled it. We currently have 171 active cases and 5 deaths. We have also vaccinated 37,000 out of our population of 100,000. Although we are an island so we did have an easier job than many other countries. You also live in a gorgeous country, good for you on all counts. Best flag too, after 70s Libya and the Hungarian SSR of course. Whoa. I'm from the US, and in my high school courses, I got Seychelles for a year-long project in which different teams of 2 were assigned a country. I've wanted to visit ever since. That was 16 years ago, and this is the first time I've ever seen the phrase "I'm from Seychelles." First time I've ever seen comforts and hearts. I am very happy for your country's success. And a little jealous, lol. Australia has occasional flare-ups, but the majority of our states have 0 cases through community transmission. I think that the handling of hotel quarantine could be better, and I'd like more focus on bringing Aussies home rather than bringing in sports stars and actors, but on the whole, I'm happy. That about sums it up for me too. Also, yesterday was nice. During the last few hours of a hard lockdown here in Perth, I went for a walk in my neighborhood to my local shops and everyone was masked up, even a couple of teen boys going for a walk. I asked the checkout chick if people have been treating her okay, and she said yeah, it has been fine and no one is refusing to wear masks or anything. That made me very happy. In Perth too, I am so proud of all of us. The fact that it took 1 case out of how many thousand in hotel queue to lockdown, and the majority complied, I am so proud, and grateful, as I'm down to work on a specialized COVID ward if we need one, and secretly, wearing a mask kind of helped with all that ash in the air at the start of the week. Remember, the media will make a 20-minute story about 2 people refusing to wear a mask versus the 3 million that agreed. I'm in the UK, and our school was getting more daily cases than all of Australia that day. Too right. I've never laughed so hard when the tennis tears came. Shoosh vaginas. All our lives have changed, you can deal with it. If they don't like it, they can F off, no one forced them to come at gunpoint. Serena Williams can stay, she understood and didn't sook about it. The problem with tennis players is that most of them quit school in high school or withdraw at that stage to do private tutoring, so they never move on from a high school attitude. Combine that with a sport focused solely on individual performance and you get, with exception, highly selfish and immature adults. Form New Zealand here. ANZ have done very well to date in comparison to most of the world. Germany here, 50-50. Looking at other countries, I can say that it could have been worse. Of course, I do not expect everything to be perfect, as it's hard for everyone and you can't satisfy everyone. But there is still very much that could have been made better. Schooling could have been handled a lot better. Abrupt law changes only caused money making for a few. Why does a McDonald's keep open and gets funds while little restaurants run into bankruptcy because they don't fulfill the requirements to get a fund? There are many questionable things. I agree with your answer. Restaurant rules were insane. First, restaurants were forced to invest tons of money for establishment of a hygiene concept and those plastic walls and stuff, only to be closed in the following. That was really not a good long-term plan. It was the same with the theaters. We did everything possible, a lot of extra cleaning, walk paths for the customers. And now all of them are closed since November. The main mistakes have been, in my opinion, the time in summer has not been used to modernize government health agencies. Anyone still knows facts? And prepare schools, businesses for remote operation. The second lockdown in spring came 1 month too late because of political games between the federal and state governments. Due to this reason, the number of regular cases is about 10 times higher as it could be. The EU vaccine purchase program has failed to get hand on a significant number of vaccines for the first half of 2021, especially compared to the purchase programs in Israel, US and UK. The behavior rules are inconsistent, differ between states and are regularly changed without good reasons. Furthermore, they are not sufficiently enforced. But compared to some other states, I agree that it could be much worse. Berliner here. I totally agree with you. What really pissed me off was the whole lockdown light in December, as if anyone believed it would do anything. Instead of catering to effing holiday zealots, they should have shut everything down. We could be moving out of the lockdown by now if it hadn't been for that travesty. I think the first lockdown was handled really well, but especially the whole lockdown light situation and online school went really bad. German student, I feel like they trying their best, but it feels as if they're inexperienced. Now I am just like you, I don't expect them to be perfect either, unlike a lot of people here. Tax haters. That being said, the citizens are not handling it much better, If you want to know why the Germans are begging for school to be back, that's because the teaching is almost 40% slower because of teachers not knowing how to use computers. Also, one time my mom did a test and before the result she asked if she should stay at home or not. Obviously the doctor said yes, but when she asked if I should stay she said no. Her point was that my mom had the symptoms but I didn't, and I don't think I need to tell you why that is stupid. And as you already mentioned, there are a lot of restrictions that are questionable or just downright illogical. I live in Antigua, in the Caribbean. 108 square miles of paradise, so our main industry is tourism. When the pandemic had really started to gain notoriety to us, when globally there was little known about the disease and forced lockdowns, and a ventilator craze in the US and countries in Europe of which we'd attract the majority of our tourists, it seemed like common knowledge that we should have just shut our borders as a precaution since there had been no cases here. However, our gov decided to leave borders open and implement a 24-hour curfew, which borderline seemed inept. A few days or weeks or so later our first case had been discovered and it seemed more than likely to be imported. Reports were pretty reserved, but people have brains. Everyone was trying to rush home out of fear, and it was even rumored that the initial case may have been brought about by some minister or something bending rules to get their son or daughter in. I really don't know. We've only around 80k to 90k individuals on the island, and now we're going through another spike. We've reported around 80 cases with 7 deaths, and our borders are still open, but they've changed our 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew to an 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. It kind of pains me to fathom that we could have handled this a bit better. I don't know though. I'm not a brainiac or minister or anything, so I guess they know something we don't. Trinidad here, we're on the other extreme. Borders closed since March, with many citizens having issues getting back into the country months later. Fortunately the numbers are low, no sign of borders reopening anytime soon. Galapagos is going through a similar situation. I'm not from there, but was visiting through a school program when the pandemic hit. Their government is also heavily reliant on tourism for the economy, so to shut everything down would be disastrous, and it was. Many people lost their jobs, not only in the Galapagos but in mainland Ecuador as well. In Guayaquil there were literally bodies piling up in the streets. The Galapagos also depends on shipments of food from the federal government, which allegedly stopped around the time the pandemic was really bad. One of my friends who is from there told me this. Lack of funding, from no tourism, also meant that they couldn't afford to pay national parks, so a lot of invasive species were able to wreak havoc on the environments. This is really a tragedy, as Galapagos is one of the most biodiverse places on Earth. Also somewhat unrelated, but apparently there are a bunch of Chinese fishing vessels surrounding the protected marine reserves and overfishing like crazy. Ecuador is doing really bad right now. Edit. While their economy is mainly tourism-based, another big sector is oil exportation. With tourism gone, it's likely that they've started ramping up oil extraction efforts, which means increased deforestation in the Amazon. Absolute nightmare. What response? Sweden. Man, out of all the countries I didn't expect Sweden to do nothing. I did. Our government isn't good at doing things. The same with this vaccine. Many people don't want it after the swine flu incident in my little community. A travel ban was enacted during the holidays. Seems like half the politicians went on a Caribbean vacation anyways. So no, I'm not very happy with my government's, Canada, response. And very harsh quarantine rules were imposed conveniently after all those politicians came home. Nunavut here. We're playing Plague Incorporated on expert mode. I'm curious, what exactly is the state of the situation in Nunavut? Considering that it is different from many other provinces/territories in Canada, how does the population feel about the measures in place? Do they even have much measures in place? The father of my child being from Nunavut, I'd say they're pretty fearful ATM. They have been happily wearing masks, but considering people in Nunavut usually have households of 8+ members, it has spread fast in communities that were touched, such as Arvia. Most communities are COVID-free and living life as usual though, although, from what my ex is saying, most of his family, who are Inuit, are not open to taking the vaccine. Yeah. My family had been quarantined and keeping track of temperatures and making sure we didn't have symptoms leading up to Christmas, so we were pretty pissed when our Christmas plans were nearly tossed out the window only to find out that half the government officials making those rules were allowed to do whatever they pleased. Super hypocritical. I'm wondering what anyone expected they would do. The response is, do as I say, not as I do, and sends the message that this isn't as serious of a disaster. Leaders can divide nations of people over this. Leaders have divided nations over this. Canada keeps taking too many half-assed measures and not implementing the more serious restrictions until it's too late, like now with international travel. That, alongside leaving so much up to the provinces, has created such a mess. It doesn't help that I live in Quebec with Legault. Our fine Canadian tradition of making selective comparisons to the US and then patting ourselves on the back for it while failing to address the problem is in full swing too. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.